I'd like to welcome everyone to the District 7090 Rotary Web Talk. I'm Lisa Bishop. I'm the District Governor-elect to serve as Governor this July 1st. And I'm going to shamelessly plug our Club Training Assembly, which is for those that are in positions within their club or AGs, Club President-Select, Secretary, Treasurer, PI lead, membership lead, foundation lead. We're all meeting on the Thursday evening, May 5th. And you've received some information about that. And it's going out again from 7 till 9. On the Saturday, May 7th, we are going to have a plenary presentation, and then we're having back-to-back 2 sessions, all full of fun, different things that are all Rotary, from governance to fellowships, to structuring your meeting, to the foundation, to Rotaract and youth programs, many things. So please take the time to look at the offerings and register if you can. And I'm happy to help you out with that. You can go on the website. So it's district7090.org. Thank you so much. And it's my honor and pleasure this evening to introduce our presenter and speaker, Michele Starwalt-Woods. She can wave, everyone knows her. She sent me this lovely introduction about herself, but she's very modest. She's a very proud Rotarian, having been invited to join Rotary in April 2012. She's the past president of her club, and which is the Dunkirk Fredonia. And she's currently an assistant governor of her Area 16, and she'll be finishing this role because she's going into chair of membership for the district. And she's really well suited for that role. She has lots of enthusiasm. She's been serving also on our district public image team. And so you can see her also presenting on public image and on membership during the 2 days of our club training assembly. Michele's married to her very talented musician and educator husband, Stephen Woods. Together they have 5 children and 6 grandchildren. She comes from, she says, a small family of 3, where she, whenever she mentions her family, she always smiles. I want to add this: she's an extremely devoted daughter, very caring to both of her parents, her father now gone, but a very devoted daughter. And I really respect her for everything she's done in helping her family. She says she left her cushy job as a county director in the fall of 2019 to open her own small business that focuses on human resources, the development of human resources, female empowerment, and youth development and leadership. Since that time, and even during the pandemic, she has spoken many times throughout New York State at conferences, and she continues to have contracts with the tri-state across New York, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. Her mission is to educate, motivate, and empower. She says she always tries to be assertive and not aggressive, using that skill. And I have to tell you, Michele continues to inspire, and she sometimes quietly and sometimes assertively mentors. So she has a lot of skills, and we welcome Michele for our presentation this evening. Take it away, Michele. Thank you. And it's being recorded so everyone knows. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, District Governor-elect Lisa. I've told Lisa this before, but I'm sure many of you agree. To listen to Lisa is like so calming and refreshing. And I told her she should record some books, you know, and we could listen to them in the car and driving and airplanes. She's just got a wonderful calming sense to her when she speaks. So I'm going to share my screen right now. And what we're talking about today is the art of being assertive. And so it can kind of fall into 2 areas. Sometimes we can be so assertive that we end up being a bit aggressive, and we don't really want to do that. That definitely does not build better rapport. It doesn't work towards team building efforts, and oftentimes alienates people. So we do want to be assertive. We don't want to be too aggressive. And we also need to keep in mind, some of us may keep kind of quiet when we know something is wrong, when we need to bring something to the forefront. Maybe our own inhibitions or our own insecurities, or maybe the fact that we don't think we're right or don't have the right to speak up, so we remain quiet. If that's not our personality, perhaps we know people who are like that. So we always want to be sure, especially when we're in leadership positions, whether it's in a volunteer role, whether it's in a work-related role, whether it's in a community role. If we are acting as leaders, we want to be bridge builders. We need to build rapport. And we need to keep in mind, there's a lot of type A personalities among us. So we need to keep in mind those people who are a little bit more reluctant to speak up, who are not as assertive and willing to speak out as we are. So we already had that wonderful introduction from District Governor-elect Lisa Bishop. I absolutely love this picture. This was when she was on the call and they announced the new Rotary theme for Lisa's year, Imagine Rotary. And so we're going to start talking about what causes us to be too harsh. So we're in a situation, and again, it can be during the workday, it can be in an evening, volunteer environment. It can sometimes even be in church-related things. It certainly can be even in Rotary. But sometimes we might get to be too outspoken or too demanding or too pointed. So why is that? What causes us to be that way? And so the world of Zoom, we're all seeing each other on the screen, and I can see some of you and not all of you, and I can toggle down and see most of you. But
can you keep this?
I love interaction. So if we were in a classroom, or if we were out in a pavilion, or if we were in a big conference room, I would be looking for some type of interaction and involvement. So if you'd like to raise your hands, if you'd like to just go ahead and speak up, that's fine. When you're done speaking though, as Dave said, if you can mute yourselves. But in some situations, if we're feeling under pressure, if we're trying to get the job done, what makes us act? And this can be verbally, this can be in body language when we fold our hands and cock our heads to one side. This can be in written format. Goodness knows on social media now, there seems to be no decorum sometimes of what can be said and answered and responded to. A little bit sometimes lack of civility. So what are some things that if we're not normally a harsh, spiteful, nasty person, what can cause us to be that way? What situations arise that we become just a little too pointed in our talk? And I have to tell you, for me, it usually is when I'm under like a massive amount of stress. I mean, stress is kind of everything, but if I'm under the wire and something goes wrong somewhere, and then if I'm responsible for myself, I'm A-okay. But if I'm responsible for a group, there have been times that I can get just a little snippy, a little pointed, a little overbearing. So what are some of the triggers that cause you to be a little bit too harsh or a little bit too aggressive? Anybody? I might call out on somebody.
Hello,
Yes, go right ahead. Thank you.
I'm Annette from Rotary Lakeshore. And I think maybe one of the reasons we can be too harsh is we have a real strong opposing opinion to what the other individual or group might be saying.
That's excellent. And there's times that we are right. We know we're right. And we definitely feel we need to share that with others, correct? Anyone else want to jump in real quick?
Michelle, sometimes I think it's the way other people treat us, and it's our reaction to them. Like we've just had enough of the way you're talking to me, and we get harsh and snippy.
Because sometimes when I hear you say that, Reg, it's a defense mechanism too, right? We don't want to be walked on. We don't want to be downtrodden. We don't want to be disrespected. So we kind of put that armor on and come out fighting, right?
Yeah, and sometimes it's just self-preservation.
Self-preservation. That's one of my things too. And especially, I think sometimes if past occurrences, whether in personal relationships or business settings, if we truly had been, taken advantage of, or perhaps, not promoted in a way that we thought we should have been, that self-preservation sometimes becomes even stronger. And so then our aggressive words sometimes become stronger. Now we're going to flip to the other side of things. There's reasons sometimes when something is taking place. And again, in any of your life dealings, work settings, family, personal, backyard barbecues, whatever it might be, that we might see some type of injustice. We know something isn't quite copacetic. And I don't mean the type of situation where we need to call and report it to the authorities. I'm just talking about an uncomfortable situation where we know that either the entire group or a few people or even ourselves, need to be held in a higher standard. But all of a sudden, our lips become sealed and we take a step back and we think, oh, I'm not going to sweat the small stuff. I'm just going to, maybe it'll blow over. Maybe things will change. I'm not going to stir the pot. What are some of those reasons that we don't stand up for ourselves, or especially those around us? Why do we remain quiet sometimes? And in this day and age, sometimes it can be a very big concern, right? But there's always some reason behind it. So what are those reasons? And for me, I can say sometimes the biggest one is the fear. I mean, I think I'm right. I almost know I'm right, but having just that little bit of doubt. And then the second thing is Michelle's always the person speaking up. Michelle's always that one, with the banner saying, what about the legality of it? Or what about the principle of it? Or how is this going to look to the greater community? So those are two reasons, at least for me, that I sometimes really do kind of just pipe down and not say anything, which is not usually my style. And then I tend to stress about it a little bit afterwards. But how about some of you, anyone that we haven't heard from yet? If there's a situation that you're not comfortable with, that something should be said, but you kind of take 2 steps back and don't say anything at all, what are some of the reasons you don't actively speak out?
This isn't particularly apply to me, but in some cases, it's just a matter of how do I explain it? Kind of I don't know how to explain it. Sorry, I'll have to get back to you.
Okay, think about it. Anyone else? What causes us, or even someone that you might know, not to speak out?
I'll speak up. One of the things can be that I'm not a big idea guy, I'm a process guy. And you can be in a session where all these people have got these great ideas and they're really enthusiastic. And I know that I have about a dozen other reasons why they're going to have a problem. And I just, and you just don't want to be the person who's the negative. You don't want to be there and be, Debbie Downer and say, this isn't really going to work real well because, and you just don't fit in real well.
And then again, that person who's always saying something. And then so sometimes we don't have quite as receptive ears if we're always that person pointing something out. Yeah. I thought I heard somebody else pipe in.
It's Jackie. Yeah.
Great, Jackie.
I was thinking more in work-related type things. I'm a bit like you. I'm always the one standing up, fighting for everybody. And it got to a point of management retribution, that I would stand up and point out what is wrong. And all of a sudden I found either my shifts are canceled, or actually I ended up getting laid off when I worked and others didn't work, sort of thing. But retribution is huge. I remember one instance that Doesn't matter what the situation was, but I spoke up. I voiced how I thought this was not wrong, and I was not rude or ignorant about it. And I got hauled into the manager's office and told that, why do I have such a downer attitude? I said, because blah, blah, blah. So I think retribution is a huge thing. You want to hold on to your job, so you just stop talking because you have to pay the bills.
Have to pay the bills is right. Thank you for that, Jackie. I appreciate that. Anyone else would like to share why they or someone they know might not speak up in a situation that should be,
This is
you know,
Dave Barry
brought attention
speaking. Hello?
to? Yes.
I have a tendency to look at some people that in a discussion, they get very myopic about what their opinion is or where they're going. And I keep saying to them, no, think laterally, think laterally. There's more to this. You've got to have a wider perspective, and it doesn't work. And I sort of get a little uptight about them.
What was that?
I get uptight about them. They don't seem to follow through very well.
It's like the injustice of it all, right? I'm a big, you know, my husband, my colleagues, my children always hear me say, well, it's the principle of the matter, right? It comes down to the principle. And, you know, we all should, you know, not all be on the same wavelength, but we should all be working together to create, you know, a better, more positive outcome, to work towards those goals and reach them together, instead of breaking apart. We're just going to talk very quickly right now about managing stress and then building a better rapport. So as I said before, oftentimes when we are overly aggressive in our verbal responses, in our body language, in even our feelings, sometimes stress has a lot to do with that. So there's actually some key points that before we say something that we regret, before we type something that's out there forever and we regret, before we reply to that, well, a little bit of a terse email, instead of responding in a very terse manner, there's some actual triggers that we can notice within ourselves before we let ourselves get to that over aggressive point. And so, I mean, even physically, you know, our heart rate tends to go faster. We get flushed, you know, for women over a certain age, you can feel that hot flash come on in an instant. And it usually really oftentimes, at least for me, is when I'm like worked up about something and I have, you know, that no control feeling, that bam, there it goes. And then those words kind of fly right out. So managing stress. When we feel ourselves getting to that point, it's like watching a pot truly come to a boil. There's a whole process before that water starts to bubble in that pan, right? Or if you're doing it in the microwave, you know, those bubbles don't happen within 2 seconds. It takes a while to get there. So if we're able to manage stress, and even if it's during the workday, and we are swamped beyond belief, we've got 5 deadlines due, you know, then there's the phone calls and there's people who need us immediately. And we're just under so much pressure. Just to take even a quick walk, if you're able to, around your building, up and down a couple sets of stairs, get outside, even in the wintertime, and take some cleansing breaths. Those are all ways we can manage stress. In the evening, you know, sometimes we're so busy that we truly forget what we love doing the most. I love to read. I love to quill. When things are so busy, I haven't touched a book, you know, like in 3 months. That's sad. When I could even read a chapter at night, I'm not talking 5 chapters, I'm not talking finishing the book, that alleviates some of that stress. Meditation, yoga, physical activity, if we can learn to manage that stress, those aggressive words, motions, body language, again, typed responses are not going to be so quick and so, you know, so spontaneous. One of our main goals, again, as leaders, as collaborators, as people working together in Rotary to better our Rotary clubs, to better our communities through our Rotary service above self actions is always building better rapport. What can we do right now to make that rapport in our clubs be just a little bit better than it was the day before? Sometimes we're discombobulated. You know, there's a lot of talk about, well, it wasn't like that in the traditional Rotary. And I love traditional Rotary. I love going to those clubs that they've been doing this for, 50 years. It's comforting. It's tradition. We wrap ourselves in it. Are we gaining new members? Maybe some are, maybe some aren't. So having those honest and sometimes a little painful discussion at a board meeting, at a committee meeting, will help us to get those new members and bridge that gap. You don't have to get rid of the old to embrace the new. The two can go hand in hand. So building better rapport, we need to be open-minded. We have a wonderful coaching seminar in our district. If any of you haven't taken it, I strongly recommend it. It teaches us to be better listeners, and it teaches us how to empower those around us. Instead of coming up with A, B, C, D plan, it helps us work together to come up with those plans, and everybody has their input. Big plug in for Al Luchkin and that coaching team. It's phenomenal. What we're going to do right now is we're going to have a 10-minute breakout session. And up on the PowerPoint, this is what we're going to do. So when we break out into breakout rooms, and Dave, we have much less than we thought. So I think we can effectively, we were talking about 7 in a room, but I don't think we need that even now. I think it can be less than that. But there's going to be one note taker in the room. And what I'm going to ask you to do is, if you are the person who's like me, who's very comfortable getting up there and talking and sharing and, teamed
Appreciate everyone's
consensus.
attendance at our insight session this afternoon.
Say that again?
A wide range of feedback.
And so if you are that person who's always very comfortable talking, very comfortable sharing, very comfortable giving directives, I'm going to ask that you be the note taker in your group. I'm going to ask that you just simply kind of be the listener in your group. In each group, there's also going to be 1 or 2 individuals, please, who's going to share a story, going to share a brief encounter that happened to you personally or to someone you know, and in any setting in your life, where a team of people or an individual became overly aggressive. And again, I'm not talking physical where like someone needs to, have law enforcement involved. I'm talking in a verbal manner. We used to, if any of you have children or grandchildren who are involved in baseball, like Little League, sometimes those are the most heated, intense verbal exchanges amongst parents in the crowd that you could ever hear. It makes people feel uncomfortable if you're not that type of personality. It makes some of the kids feel uncomfortable too. So 1 or 2 people are going to share a situation that they encountered or that they know of someone who encountered that in a setting was just verbally aggressive, physically, like, with the body language and even with emails, and just share that situation briefly. And then the other members in the group, what I want you to do is listen for those negative connotation words, those aggressive words that if you were in that situation would make you feel uncomfortable. And then when the 1 or 2 people are done sharing their story, and again, we don't need to make it real long, just brief, tell the note taker what those words were. And if you didn't hear any of those words, what were some things that might have come to your mind? If someone comes up behind you at work and just kind of glares at what you're working on, does that make you feel uncomfortable? Does it make you feel pressured? So those kinds of things. The note taker is going to write those words down, and then we're going to come back together in the group and share some of these scenarios. So we need a note taker who normally is the person who's very verbal. That note taker is going to be the listener today. We need 1 or 2 people to share a story that there was an aggressive manner being portrayed. And then you're going to share those words or feelings with the note taker. And then you're going to come back in to the main group. Before we part, and when we break out into breakout rooms, it always reminds me of the little spiders in Charlotte's Web as they're flying away out the door. I don't know why, it just always comes to mind. But before we go into our breakout rooms, are there any questions right now? And I'll be floating in and out too. And we're all good with the directions? Okay, Dave Barry, do your magic. Thank you so much. I didn't get to all the rooms. I did get to a few though. And I love when we're able to do that. And, you know, I see a lot of familiar faces. And so some of us have been in breakout rooms together before. We know each other. Some of us don't. And so to be, you know, that open and honest, especially when it was a difficult situation that you were sharing, really speaks a lot about Rotary and the friendships that we make and the confidence and confidentiality that's involved. So thank you so much. Jackie and whomever was in your group, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I loved, you know, that was my last group that I was with. And your conversation was very heartfelt, concerning, you know, in the club, Rotary Club arena. So could you just share some of the, you don't have to give the whole situation, the whole synopsis, but could you just share some of those words that were making it an aggressive situation with this one individual?
I don't know if it's just the words, but the attitude that came across with the words, the actual words that were used were not horrible words or nasty words, but they were framed in a way that the message came across as brutal.
So they're pointed words on their
Yes.
own. They're not horrible. They're not overly aggressive, but when it combined with the thought, it makes it, like you said, what you said, unbearable.
Yeah,
or
that's
brutal.
very, very well pointed. They're pointed words and put together. The emotion and the attitude and the feelings were nasty. And you couldn't help but read that into the words. There's no way that it could be misinterpreted.
And now the other folks that were in your room, and I don't see her on the screen right now. Oh, Yolanta.
Yes.
So you mentioned an email, correct?
Yeah.
And then, so it was a pointed situation.
Yeah, it's it wasn't the situation face to face, because it probably would play out a little bit differently, because I am passionate. And so because it was email, I was able to actually reflect on the situation and see how I want to react. And I did not react to the unusual way that I would say, okay, I would start to assert myself and say, you know, I know what I'm doing, and maybe you need to reflect on what you are telling me. So I took the attitude now that you want to do it, just go ahead and do it. And I step back. And that's not the best situation, because the outcome is not going to be really good for the club. It will be good for me because I will have no stress. Don't have to argue with that person. But is it good for club? No, because I know that she's not going to do a good job. She was trying to push my buttons, and she was trying to get, you know, I don't know. Anyway, this situation, I wasn't happy about that situation. And although I will have happy life, but it's not good for a club. And my happy life will be because I am not going to argue with that person. But it's not good for club.
So you chose to be assertive in your response by not engaging.
Yes.
Would anyone else like to share and again, I'm not seeing, and they might have the picture off. It was the friends scenario. Best friends for over 20 years. One is a little more assertive. One is not as assertive. That was interesting.
That would be me.
Just share a little bit about that.
I was basically talking about my best friend who actually chartered this club with me. Is a diehard Rotarian, and we started off our friendship 20 years ago at very opposite ends, where she was overly assertive and I am very not assertive at all. And then we always say, you know, we started off here and now we're about here. So I like to say that she built my backbone, and I in turn have helped her calm down, sit back, and kind of reflect. Just how Yolanta was saying, you know, she had time to reflect when looking at an email and sending it. I actually just came across an email that she had forwarded to me where she didn't take that time to reflect, and how she came across in that email. I'm like, you are so different now. You know, that was 10 years ago, and you're completely, you never would have dreamed of writing this email today. And you were just so quick to send it 10 years ago. So it just shows, you know, that people can change, and you kind of rub off on each other when it's seen as a positive. Like both being assertive and not being overly assertive, like both are good. You just have to find kind of like a balance.
I love that scenario, and I think it can play out in our clubs as well. If we have someone that is overly aggressive and pointed and you know, bossy, and you know, telling everybody what to do all the time, or always, there's another scenario that goes with that, complaining, you know, complaining and complaining and complaining. You know, maybe we can intentionally, but not with everybody, you know, being aware of it, pair those people together. You take a person who might be just a little quieter, and they can learn from that person who's very vocal. And then in turn, just like you did, Nicole, the person who is very vocal can give some help and assistance to the person who's a little more quiet. And then the friend can pick up those quiet points, you know, from yourselves as well. I have a good friend, one of my best friends, actually. It was way back when I was in high school. That's a heck of a long time ago, folks, that I sent her a letter in the mail. And she said to this day, when she gets a card from me, she's somewhat just a little hesitant to open it. Of course, there was no email, you know, back then. There was no texting or anything like that. And I don't know, I can't even remember what I was outraged over. But it was probably one of the most pointed things I ever, you know, sent to a person I care about in my whole life. And that one incident, honestly, always reminds myself that actions have consequences, words have consequences. Take a step back, take a deep breath. You know, with email or even a journal, we have the power to write things down. We have the power to record ourselves and talk into a microphone. You know, we have all those things at our discretion. We don't have to hit the send button. we can let it out. We can get it out. Nobody else has to know about it. So that's great. Does anybody else want to share what they talked about in their breakout room?
If I can.
Go right ahead. Thank you so much.
I thought it was an interesting situation. It was a boss, and she didn't have all the words, but it was a whole situation of using raised voices. The vocabulary got into swearing, which is never good. There was a bit of physical touching as well. And then alcohol. So that's probably never a good situation. And probably real threatening to the group of employees there, with questioning loyalty is what I wrote down when the boss was saying that the job always had to come first, which I think is I mean, we want our people engaged and always there, but I didn't think that was very good either. So it was the whole situation, and it just didn't sound very good at all to me.
On your first thought, would you have any, like, how would you try and turn it around? Would there, like, if you were thinking about it, what would be the first method, the first step you would take to try and turn things into a positive, more assertive, as opposed to aggressive manner?
Gosh, we didn't get to talk about that on that situation, but there was some of the other, this boss had sons that were also involved in the business who seemed a little more reasonable. I think maybe afterwards, talking to them to talk to this other person would have been the thing to do. I'm not sure what you'd do right at the time. I think you might just want to try and
Take a breather, take a walk,
Yeah.
de-escalate, move away.
Yes. Yeah.
Sandy, you had your hand up.
Yeah, we had a situation prior to email as well. Just shows our age in Rotarians. But a customer was not happy and felt he didn't trust the people, and so he came into the office screaming. So immediately that started everything. It was a domino effect, which upset the entire office. His mannerisms, the way that he presented himself, made everybody uncomfortable and very loud. And of course, what we did in the situation, or was done in the situation, was to basically pay the guy off and tell him, don't come back again, give him his money back, and try to get your office back not as upset. Because as well as just the man being upset, and whether he was wrong or right, probably wrong, because as we said in our second one, people come in demanding, they feel they're entitled before thinking what other people's ideas are. They don't look at the, like we do in Rotary, is it fair to both concern, fair to both. And that's one of the things that doesn't happen. People don't do that. So you have to get your office down as well. So the situation was handled very properly by what was said, but it's the customer, the loud noise and everything. So that's basically what we talked about.
I was wondering if anybody, I had it actually part of my PowerPoint, and then I removed it because I was wondering if there would be anyone from this awesome group of leaders as Rotarians and Rotarians as leaders who would bring up the four-way test, because in every single situation, that four-way test applies. The one that holds closest to my heart is, will it build goodwill and better friendships? So if what I'm saying at my meeting, if what I'm saying after a meeting, if what I'm saying in a subcommittee planning for an event is not building goodwill and better friendships, I need to take a step back, or we, the group, need to take a step back and figure out how we can be more assertive and not so aggressive. The aggressive pushes people away. The assertive pulls people in. Anyone else? Any final comments? Paul?
Michelle, isn't there a preface to the four-way test that says, in all the things we say or do?
Is
I
it?
don't know if we typically recite that, but I believe it's there.
Yes, that's like the preamble, right, of the four-way test. Yes, it's right in the very beginning. Sometimes, like when you go to church, you say those prayers, you say the same things over and over. Pull that four-way test apart, and really delve into it, because it will answer any situation and solve any problem.
And it's actually of the things we think say or do.
Thank-
So if we
thank you.
think and then think of these things, then we won't even say them.
Right? It's
Thank
like
you,
the
Reg.
see no evil, hear no evil, do no evil. Very true. Any final comments? Anyone else like to? I just want to share, I met with Kazi briefly, and we've all had this experience. This has been, and this is COVID, and this is what's happened, but she was relaying a situation in her own life that, you know, vaxxed, unvaxxed, I had COVID, not a big deal. But the words that I heard from her during these encounters escalated, you know, blame, lots of blame, escalating blame, disconcerting, you know, those are all aggressive words. Again, they push people away instead of pulling people in. So thank you, Kazi, too, for sharing that with me. We're getting close. Oh, I need to share my screen here. Hold on. We're getting close to the 8 o'clock hour. We might just go a couple minutes after, but not by much, I promise. And so I just want to end with a few things. And this goes again, you know, a lot of type A personalities. I need to, let's see, okay. No, okay. Lots of type A personalities, but we've also had some in our mix who are learning to be and confidently learning to be more assertive and not aggressive, and helping those who are aggressive tone it down just a little bit. But when we're able to share our opinions with confidence and we're able to relate how we feel, even if we start doing that on a very small scale, we're able to gain more confidence. And then the next time it's not so difficult. I always like to use this scenario of my oldest daughter. She was quiet as a church mouse. She had a job where she had to speak over the loudspeaker one time, and she said her mouth dried up. She couldn't get the words out. That's how shy and quiet she was. Then she took a third shift position in an emergency room. And about after 6 months of being in that position, she found her voice. So there's things that happen in our lives. And again, in no matter what arena it's in, there will be things that happen in our lives that build us up. If that's not us, if we don't have trouble speaking up, I'm going to say it one more time. Let's be cognizant of those who are a little more timid and are not as confident. Let's build them up, because it will build our Rotary clubs up. Win-win scenario, win-win situation. I love this because I am somewhat of I need the last word because it's right. And it's the principle involved, and it's just and it's fair to all concerned. And I need you to understand that. Don't you understand that? So is it really possible to walk away without needing and having that last word? We've all heard situations and scenarios tonight where that wasn't only possible, it was probable, and it happened because someone took the little bit higher of a road and they decided not to engage and go into a war of words, if you will. So it is possible to walk away without having the last word and not losing sleep over it at night too. If we're losing sleep over it, journal it down, jot it down, talk about it with a friend or loved one or even another Rotarian. But we can do it. So we can share our opinions with great confidence. We can walk away without always having to be right and using those last words that might be more aggressive than assertive. And now the moment, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, that we've all been waiting for. And I love activities, because for people who, like, I'm a very kinesthetic learner. Like I have to touch, I have to write, I have to talk, and then it all makes sense to me. So what I want you to do right now with just one of your paper clips is unfold it, undo it. So it's a line. You've got one sharp end, you've got another sharp end. I like to refer to it, it's your pointed paper clip. Now your other paper clips just set off to the side. And we're not doing anything. You're only just, you're taking one and you're discombobulating it. And so I'm going to say some words, and some are assertive words and some are aggressive words. So when I say the aggressive words, I just simply want you to take your elongated paper clip and just kind of poke your finger with it. I don't want you to hurt yourself, but I just want you to poke your finger with it. When I say some of the words that are more assertive and team building and pulling people in, I want you to take a paper clip and hold it. And then when I say another positive word, I want you to hook those two paper clips together. Okay? I like to call this rapid fire because it is kind of fast. I'll give you a little time in between, especially when we're hooking the paper clips together. My first word is dominating. So I'm going to take that paper clip and I'm just going to tap my finger. Dominating. Militant. Opinionated. Congenial. Laid back. Now I'm joining those two paper clips together. Congenial and laid back now have a little bond, don't they? Satiric. Offensive. Relaxed. A listener. So now we have 4 paper clips, all attached to one another. Open-minded. Friendly. Compassionate. Caring. Hopeful. Empowering. Pushy. Raucous. Hurtful. Emboldened. Can anyone give me one more assertive word, a team building word?
Understanding.
Understanding. So take that paper clip and clip it to the ones you already have. And now join the last one with the first one. And you have a complete circle. That's our Rotary family. That's our Rotary friends. That's our vision for the future. This is how we pull people in instead of push people away. We are Rotarians for a reason. We believe in service above self. And whatever we need to do to build others up, to be more assertive, whatever we need to do to make ourselves a little bit less aggressive when we're so stressed to the max, we know we can do it because we have our Rotary family behind us. Thank you so much for your time this evening. We were only 5 minutes overdue, and our wonderful District Governor-elect Lisa Bishop is going to close us out for the evening.
Thank you so much, Michele. And I thank everyone for taking the time to participate in this. And I have to reflect on, our choices of words and words that we use, and thinking about that and how it impacts others, and being responsible for our actions and being responsible for those around us. We were talking about Rotary meetings and having welcoming, respectful environments. And this is all part of it. It's all part of the diversity, equity, and inclusion, but being welcoming and looking at how we understand aggression and assertive, and how we see that in ourselves and in the environment that we're at. So I just want to make those comments. It's so near and dear to my heart that we are all welcoming and respectful. I thank Michele very, very much for this. And again, those that are interested in attending, I encourage you to attend our club training assembly, which is May 7th for everyone. It's on our website. We met some people this evening that are interested in Rotary, and you're welcome to join as well. So those that encouraged you to come tonight, you can speak with them to see if you would like to attend our club training assembly that's virtual and open to everyone. So thank you so much, Michele, and thank you, everyone. Have a safe evening and take care, and all the best.
Happy Easter, happy Passover. Enjoy a little bit of a break.
Very good words. Thank you.